like it is vaguely, okay. Hello, and welcome to this 9-part video about TF2. My name is Yoey, or Brian, or Kuntz, whatever you want to call me, that isn't my real name. This is a video that I thought about making for a while, but didn't really have a reason to until a friend of mine started playing TF2 and I had no idea where to go. As said, this will be an informational video with 10 sections going over what I thought necessary to know for anyone looking to get into TF2. That being said, I will probably explain some things that a lot of viewers may already know, just bear with me here. Making a video like this means that explaining common knowledge is obligatory. Alright, have I talked enough? Can we begin? Alright, let's begin. Team Fortress 2, developed by Valve in 2007, is a team-based shooter game. You know, hero shooters? Yeah, Overwatch kinda did that. Back in TF2 times, it was called class-based shooters, or something like that. Two 12-player teams, made up of 9 possible classes, fight over 1, sometimes 2 objectives. You've got your pyromaniacs, your Scotsmen, your arrogant twinks, your American stereotypes, your arrogant twinks. Essentially, the most fun you can have online, for free. But clicking on this video meant you probably already knew all this, so let's just dive in. So the first thing you're going to want to do is familiarize yourself with the game files. More importantly, how to access them and where shit is. This may sound a little daunting for a little to no experienced beginner, but I'll keep it simple and it will really help in the long run. Fucking hell, my throat. I shouldn't have done this right when I woke up. Find TF2 in your Steam library, right click on it, on the left here, and hover over Manage. Then, click on the drop-down menu option that says Browse Local Files. And that's it. As I said, super simple, and yet this is something you will need to know for things later, and it's pretty basic knowledge. Also, if I were you, I would pin this to quick access or, you know, some way to get to it faster. Okay, about 3 minutes in, and I'm just finally getting into the actual game. When TF2 was released, there were only 3 game modes and 6 maps. Now there are over 190 official maps in the game and around 20 unique game modes, including popular formats such as Capture the Flag, King of the Hill, Kill the Big Australian, this weird fucked up version of football, and actually fucking called Ghost Hunted. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to keep it simple to start with, and narrow it down to 4 game modes, that being Koth, Payload, Capture the Flag, and the respective versions of control points. I'll also be leaving out Man vs. Machine because it's not needed for general TF2 knowledge, and it's almost its own cocking game with just how different it is. Right, first, in King of the Hill, red and blue fight over 1 central control point. Once a team gets it, their timer starts to count down. If the other team steals it, their timer starts to count down, and whoever's timer runs out first wins. In Payload, blue has to push a cart to the end of a track, and red has to stop them from doing so. Red usually gets a minute to set up defenses, build Ubers, and prepare, and once that minute of setup time is finished, the gates will open and hell begins. The timer will count down, and when it runs out, red wins. Blue has to push the bomb cart to the end of a track before the timer runs out in order to win, and the timer gets set back a few minutes when blue pushes the cart over checkpoints. However, if blue goes too long without pushing, the cart will begin to slowly go backward, reverting their progress. Once a checkpoint is captured, however, that is now the furthest back a cart can go. The map also changes a bit when checkpoints are reached, usually paths opening and closing and spawn points moving. In Capture the Flag, they play Capture the Flag. I don't think I need to explain this one very much. One thing to know, though, is unlike most other modes where the teams either switch at the end or go again for a best of 3 scenario, Capture the Flag just ends once a team captures 3 times. And finally, control points. There are 2 main types, that being Standard and Attack and Defense. There's also Domination, but that only has 1 map and it's relatively minor. In Standard, the main central point is unowned and must be captured. When one team captures the middle point, the other team's next point becomes unlocked. From then on, it becomes a tug-of-war, where you're both trying to gain the enemy's points whilst not losing yours. Whoever captures the other's final point wins. It's important to note that you can only capture the next point in the sequence, as the other points will be locked until then. Most maps are mirrors of each other simply because most modes center around one main objective or two opposite objectives. When I say one central main objective, think of the main point on Sweden. And when I say two opposite objectives, think of the two intelligences on 2-Fort. Notice anything? Yeah, that's right, they're almost perfectly mirrored, minus textures and cosmetic blocks. This isn't for aesthetic. The reason most maps in TF2 are functionally perfect copies of each other are so that no team has an advantage over the other in terms of map design. This isn't always true, however. Other game modes such as Attack and Defense or Payload are designed linearly and usually give different advantages to both teams at separate times. For example, let's take one of the most popular TF2 maps out there, PL_Upward. Upward is a payload map with 4 points. Nothing changes when the first point is captured when the second point is captured. Red spawn moves back and the blue spawn moves up. When the third point is captured, blue spawn moves up to red's original spawn, and a useful flank route that red has is cut off. Just one more thing about maps before we move on is one that almost all maps share, and that is overtime. Overtime happens when a capture is being made when the timer hits 0. If red had the point in, let's say, the Koth map Harvest, and a blue Demoman was capturing it when the timer hit 0, the game would go into overtime, and that would be announced by the administrator, who is, in other words, the announcer. Overtime continues until either that blue demo finishes capturing, or is offed and the capture progress is reverted. It's important to note that capture progress reverts way faster in overtime than in normal gameplay. Alright, finally, enough about maps, let's get into gameplay. First, let's give you some tips that will save you some time, both in immediate gameplay and in the long run. First thing you want to do is go into your options, go to keyboard, which should already be pulled up, and click Advanced. You'll see two options, Enable Fast Weapon Switch and Enable Developer Console, both of which you should tick. The first one will change your gameplay directly. If you've been playing without this for a minute, you may notice that there's something faster about your weapon switch. This little menu that forces you to click which weapon you want no longer shows up, which is much faster in gameplay. The other thing you did was enabling the console, which will come in very handy throughout this video. It should be by default your tilde key, that little squiggle underneath your escape key. Pressing that will open this MS-DOS command prompt looking box. Don't worry too much about that. All you need to do with it right now is enter 3 very useful commands. The first one is FOV_desired. Now, the max that this game allows you to put this in official Valve servers and most community servers is 90, but it starts you off at 75. To show the major difference, allow me to demonstrate. This is me about to die. Can't see what's wrong with the image? Here. As you can see, the higher FOV, the better. The next command is optional, but in my opinion makes the game much easier by making things much more visible. That command is viewModel_FOV. I personally have mine set to 100 or 110, but depending on your view model, this stuff here, it may cause some visual discrepancies, like your arm suddenly ending, or the hand, so use it at your discretion. The next command is also optional, but I think most people should have it on, as it's very useful in seeing your connection, your frames, and that's net_graph. Typing this into your console and setting it to 1, and going back to the game, you'll see this little box. This may get in the way of some HUD elements, especially if it's a custom HUD, which we'll get into much later. To fix this, I make mine small and hidden with these commands here. What this mainly does is show you how fast your game is running and what your ping is. I'm sure you know what frames per second is, but to define ping, essentially the higher the number, the more laggy you are, which you don't want. Now we can close this intimidating text box and change some other settings that actually give you an objective advantage. First, go into your advanced options menu. Here you'll see a bunch of shit. Allow me to walk you through the useful things. First thing you want to enable is play a hit sound every time you injure an enemy and the one below it. Go ahead and pick your favorite noises, but essentially this will just let you know that your shot actually hits somebody. It can be hard to tell sometimes when a lot's going on or at range. This will confirm it for you. Next, tick the 3 following boxes about damage text. This is referred to as damage numbers, and it will let you see how much damage you're doing. This is useful as it helps you learn how much damage weapons do, and in turn, teaches you when to go in with or be afraid of particular weapons. Next, you want to make sure that these boxes are ticked too. These are more so quality of life improvements, and if they really bug you for whatever reason, you can turn them off, but trust me, they're passively useful. By the way, opening the advanced options will kind of fuck with your V-model FOV. Just open up the console and put it back to the value you want when you're done in that menu. It might not fuck it up depending on how high or how low you put the number, but if it does, you can just reset it with console. Alright, now that the pre-playing the game stuff is over with, let's get down to the gameplay. The reason I did all that shit first is because it'll collectively make actually playing the game easier. Let's begin. TF2 has 9 classes: Scout, Soldier, Pyro, Demo, Heavy, Engineer, Medic, Sniper, and Spy. Each class has their own abilities and aspects that make them unique fits, and no class really copies the other in any way. Looking at you, you giant piece of shit. Each class serves their role in matching team composition, and, well, they're all really fun, so let's just get right into it. First is the Scout.
Brother.
As Scout, you are a light class, meaning you have the lowest base health pool, along with Sniper, Engineer, and Spy. However, Scout has the fastest base speed, and can double jump. This means some places regular classes can't access, Scout can. This also leads to special routes that Scouts can take, such as this bridge jump on 2 fort, or these jumps on CP Steel. Don't be fooled by Scout's low health, however, as he's a formidable opponent. Scout is a scattergun, which is just the shotgun but with a slightly higher maximum damage, a pistol, and a bat, the bat being the weaker of the options. This is because, unlike most games, each class is almost perfectly balanced. Scout has to have a weak melee, being the fastest class, because he's the best at closing the distance. The pistol is the answer to Scout's shotgun problem, range. It's not only a good tool when the scattergun is just a little too impractical, and it's also a great kill confirmer if your scattergun runs out of ammo mid-fight. Then, we have the one, the only, the absolute mechanical mystery, the scattergun. This thing is a beast, like all good shotguns are. Scout has the ability to take advantage of his speed and stay in close range while also being hard to hit. Even Heavy, the beefiest class in the game with over twice your health, is no match for a Scout with the element of surprise, and it's thanks to this powerful weapon. However, while taking on the persona of who you play is fun, don't get too cocky. Being arrogant to the enemy team is a great way to die as Scout. Let your enemies respect you, but don't disrespect them. Choose fights you'll win and leave fights you won't. As a Scout, you are fortunate enough to make those decisions. Also, you will learn to fucking hate Engineer. Second, the Soldier. Jane Doe is the second most tankiest class in the game, sitting at a comfortable 200 health. He's known for his arsenal, the rocket launcher, the shotgun, and the shovel. The shovel is... well, it's a shovel. You're not going to be too reliant on this thing as most melees. Once we get into the unlocks is when melees become more useful in your loadout, especially for Soldier. The shotgun is a pretty good defensive tool, and it's a nice thing to be able to fall back to should there be a tight hallway, an empty clip, or an air blast happy pyro impeding your rocket launching. Speaking of, the rocket launcher is a staple of TF2, capable of both propelling you and the body parts of your enemies. The rocket launcher is a very strong weapon, and it's a pretty consistent one too. Its splash damage allows you to shoot kinda just near where the enemy is, and still do decent damage, which is especially good for fighting scouts, as direct hits are no longer necessary. Just don't blow yourself up. Like, actually don't. It happens way more than you'd think. Rocket jumping is something I'll get into later, but for right now, all you aspiring soldier mains need to know is look down, jump, crouch, fire. This has a lot of potential, and if you'll just stick with me for a few more sections, I'll show you how to harness it. Also, you want to be very wary of pyros for a reason I'll explain right now, actually. Pyro is one of the interesting cases of a one-man crowd control characters. He carries with him one of the most powerful guns in the game, that being the shotgun, arguably the most useless melee in the game, and his signature staple is homemade flamethrower. Well, I say homemade, it looks like he made it in a Valera parking lot. His melee, the Fire Axe, is a typical melee weapon. Every melee in the game, excepting Spy's Knife and Scout's Bat, does 65 damage and swings about this fast. A shotgun is still the shotgun, but different from the Soldier and Scout because Pyro has no long range option, so if you're like 10 feet away, you're just kind of fine. The Flamethrower is a pretty powerful, albeit brain-dead weapon. With a pretty fast kill rate and lingering effect, it's great at mowing people down, both in a group and otherwise. It's also great at finding spies, as even if they're disguised or invisible, it will still ignite them on contact. His flamethrower also has an alternate fire called Air Blast. Air Blasting both changes any projectile from the enemy team to yours, besides sticky bombs, and also throws it in the direction you're looking, which is usually right back at the enemy. Doing this can double as both saving your team from oncoming danger and a nice ranged attack from a normally short-range class. If blasting teammates thrown fire also extinguishes them, helping them, healing you for 20 health, and pissing off your rival pyro. Next up is the Black, Scottish, Alcoholic, Explosive, Disabled. The game likes to say Demoman is a defense class, but experienced players will tell you that's bullshit. While it's true that Demo is popularized for his defensive capabilities, what with his trap setting and all, a lot of TF2 players have that burning image in their mind of an uber-charged Demo spamming stickies and clearing an entire choke point. Demo comes with a grenade launcher, a sticky bomb launcher, and a bottle of bevy. Get it? Because he's an alcoholic. The bottle's a typical melee, we're not going to pay attention to that very much. His explosives are his main toolset. He's capable of laying traps with his sticky bombs, or what's called sticky spam, where you keep rapidly shooting and detonating sticky bombs to cause consistent, strong damage. He also has his grenade launcher, which I don't have to explain very much, although it is worth noting that the grenade launcher is one of the only guns that has a set damage. Every direct hit with a grenade is going to be 100 damage, unless the target has resistances, but we'll talk about that later. Demo can also blast jump with his sticky bombs, just like Soldier with his rocket launcher. Only sticky jumping is much more consistent, as you choose when it detonates. It's also easier to control, as detonating later will send you less, and detonating right as you jump will send you farther, damaging you less so and more so respectively. After the Demoman comes the Heavy. Heavy sits at a very comfortable 300 health, the highest base health, while also walking the slowest at 10 miles per hour somehow? His fists are his melee because fuck that weapon shit when you're as strong as Heavy. He also has a shotgun, but it's only really used if your minigun is out of ammo or you don't want to be surprised. The minigun has the highest DPS, damage per second, of all the stock weapons, and has pretty good damage fall-off too. Its main weakness is its speed, both in movement and revving. Heavy has to rev up his minigun before he can shoot it, which is a window of vulnerability as you can't cancel it midway and you also can't attack until it's done. It also makes you move even slower, making you the theoretical easiest target for snipers. Heavy's one of the greater uber targets for a medic, simply due to the minigun alone. A Heavy's biggest weakness is the inability to avoid taking damage. Take that away and there's nothing to stop you from mowing down all that you see. That and a lot of inexperienced medics, assuming they know that Uber exists, will just kind of choose Heavies anyway, whether it's because they see Heavy doing good, or they just look at the biggest guy with the biggest gun, or they're trying to recreate Meet the Medic, whatever. As an Heavy, you're going to want to stick with your team. Being the biggest guy means you're the biggest target. This may sound counterintuitive, but your health allows you to be that shield for your team. Due to the way medkits work, you also get the most health from them than the other classes. Pair that with bias from your medics, and it's not too hard to replenish any health lost from your damage soaking. When damaged teammates are fleeing from the enemies, you are that wall that they can run behind. Snipers and spies are a Heavy's biggest threat. Heavy being the slowest is the easiest class to headshot. and with the biggest back and the rarely turning around playstyle, you will also be the easiest class to backstab, so keep your head on a swivel. If you see a sniper, jump and crouch randomly to try and fuck up their aim and put something between you and him pronto. If you see a spy, well, I don't need to explain that one. After the Heavy is the loud, proud resident of 1960s Texas, so probably racist, Engineer. Engineer is a pretty weak class. He's also considered a light class, and combat-wise, he's just slower, slightly less powerful scout. Unless ammo capacity equals power, because holy shit, Valve, why is Engineer allowed this much pistol ammo? Engineer isn't very impressive in fights, but in fairness, that's not his gimmick. His gimmick is his buildings. Engineer has 3 buildings he can build, and that is a teleporter, a dispenser, and a sentry. Each building can be upgraded, which costs 200 metal, and has 3 levels, which are advanced via upgrading. First off is a teleporter, which I don't even think I have to explain, really. I mean, you throw the entrance down, you throw the exit down elsewhere, bum tish, ta-da, you've done it. Each upgrade decreases the recharge time of teleporters from 10 seconds at level 1 to 5 seconds at level 2, and 3 seconds at level 3. Oh, and each one costs 50 of your 200 maximum metal to build in the first place. Second, the dispenser. This box is capable of healing and refueling both you and your teammates. Level 1s cost 100 metal to create, and they give 10 health a second back as well as ammo. That little gauge with the arrow on also shows how much metal your dispenser has created. That's right, this thing passively generates metal for the engineer to use, somehow. Level 2s dispense health at 15 health a second, more ammo per second, and more metal when standing near it. Level 3s regenerate 20 health a second, more ammo, more metal, etc. It's just better. Lastly, the big boy, the sentry gun. This dainty little thing costs 130 metal up front to start building. It starts off as a small, albeit threatening little pea shooter, then becomes a twin-barreled Gatling gun type thing, and then at level 3 it's got a bloody rocket launcher on. I don't think I need to explain this one much, I think you get the gist. Spies can also sap your buildings, putting these little funny boxes on them. These little funny boxes completely fuck up your buildings, disabling them and draining them of their health. When this happens, you'll get a visual and audible UI alerts, and Engineer will shout something out. 2 melees from your wrench will remove these sappers, but you'll have to repair what damage has been done. It's important to note that as an engineer, pretty much every problem of yours is solved by hitting it. Buildings taking damage? Hit it with a wrench. Spy running towards your nests? Hit it with a wrench. Have to upgrade to help the team? Hit it with your wrench. Your wife's trying for alimony? Hit it with a wrench. Also, during setup times, Engineer upgrades buildings faster. It still takes 200 metal to upgrade buildings, but instead of 25 per swing, during setup it's 50 per swing, upgrading things twice as fast. Medic is a little more complicated than you think. He's not quite a light class at 150 health, and he's tied with Spy for the second highest base movement speed. You're not too good at defending yourself, not including random crits. The syringe gun has a lot of potential, sometimes even enough to go on kill streaks, but this is very rare, difficult, and inconsistent. Medic thrives when he has a competent team to benefit. Unlike all other classes, team composition is not hindered by you picking Medic. Sometimes your team doesn't need a scout, or choosing a sniper or spy when there's already 1 or 2 of them. Picking Medic is almost always useful, even if you already have 2 other medics. Medic has one main focus point, and that's healing. Medic's medigun heals at about 25 health a second, although this changes, which I'll explain later. It also builds an Ubercharge, which I've already mentioned a few times. Healing people, especially those who are taking damage, builds up your Ubercharge percentage, which, when full, allows for 8 seconds of an on-demand invulnerability for 8 seconds. This is most commonly used for clearing a point or destroying a sentry nest. It should also be known by all medics that Ubers build much faster in setup time, sometimes even being able to pop 3 of them off in 1 setup time. Outside of Ubers and regular healing, the medigun can also overheal. With continuous healing, Medic can temporarily raise a class's health from their base health to 150% of their base health, or 1.5 times. This means that soldiers can be overhealed from 200 to 300, light classes from 125 to about 187, and heavies from 300 to 450, etc. This overheal will start to deteriorate after you disconnect your healing beam. It's also good to stay with your team, similar to heavy but for the opposite reason. Remember when I said the example of an injured teammate running behind the heavy to stay safe? Yeah, you are that injured teammate. Don't take Medic's 25 additional health compared to the light classes for granted. The lack of self-defense will leave you dead most of the time. Next up, the Kiwi. That's right, Sniper's from New Zealand. As one of the 4 light classes, Sniper is pretty weak and also does best by himself. When your whole team is moving up, you'll be pretty much at spawn most of the time. Sniper, along with Demo, has one of the few guaranteed damage guns. An unscoped shot will deal a consistent 50 damage, again, unless resistances are involved. When you scope into your sniper rifle, you'll see this funny little meter right here. As this increases, so does your damage. Crits do 3 times damage, and shooting somebody in the head, besides backstabs, I guess, is the only way to get guaranteed critical damage. Your sniper rifle's charge also goes up slowly while you're scoped and resets if you unscope or shoot. At maximum charge, it triples your shot damage from 50 to 150. And headshots give crits, which triple the damage too. That means that a fully charged headshot deals 450 damage, enough to drop a fully overhealed heavy. Sniper, like Medic, is pretty bad at defending himself. It's a meme that Sniper, funnily enough, also like Medic, gets insane amounts of random crits, but regardless, he's pretty vulnerable once you close the distance. This is why most of his faraway sniper spots are somewhat fortified. Usually they're up off the ground and inaccessible from the enemy's side. If you could just run up to a sniper, you'll probably be able to kill him pretty easily. There's also usually a health and ammo kit nearby to help sustain the very campy playstyle that is inherently part of playing Sniper. And finally, my personal favorite to play, the Spy. Spy is the final class, and is also one of the 4 light classes. Spy is a glass cannon, and it doesn't really fit in very well compared to the rest of the team. No matter what you're against, you can pretty much always do alright. Scout can always get kills, Soldier can always get kills, etc. Some particularly good players may beat you in each interaction, but for the most part, if your team's doing okay, you can do okay. However, this isn't something that Spy has. If the enemy team is good, a sniper can still click on heads, or an engineer can still get sentry kills, but if an enemy team is good, Spy has a hard time doing pretty much anything. Spy is based around your enemies, not your team. At most, your team is a good distraction, but playing Spy is like playing your own game. Spy comes out of the factory with a knife, a revolver, a disguise kit, an invis watch, and an electro sapper. Now, I know this is pretty memed, and I actually hate hearing this because most Spy players follow this anyway, but this video is meant for beginners, so it's obligatory that I say this. Don't forget about the revolver. The revolver is stronger than you think, so strong in fact that some spies use only the revolver. Anyway, moving on, the disguise kit allows you to disguise as any class both in the enemy's team and yours. There is one thing to note on this, and that's spawning wall hacks. I was going to mention spawning wall hacks in the basic section, but it pretty much only matters if you're Spy. When you spawn, you can see the outlines of your teammates for a few seconds. This includes you if you were disguised as an enemy, so be careful if you're trying to camp outside of a spawn. Attacking will also drop your disguise, so be wary of that. Also, avoid running into enemies. You can run through your teammates and friendly buildings, but you can't run through enemies and enemy buildings, even if you're disguised as an enemy. So, if you randomly bump into a teammate, that's not a teammate, that is a disguised spy. Another good tip about disguises is that you can use enemy resources. Enemy medics can heal, overheal, and even ubercharge you. You can also get ammo and health back from enemy dispensers and go through enemy teleporters, although you actually don't need to be disguised to go through enemy teleporters. Next, the Invis Watch. Pressing right click will turn you invisible. This invisibility lasts for 10 seconds, but can also be refilled by ammo kits and dispensers. When you take damage or bump into somebody, you become partially visible. Also, avoid fire like the plague. Both cloaking and uncloaking is audible, so be careful what you're doing around enemies. He also has the Sapper. The Sapper is only for engineers. Placing it on an enemy building disables it and drains their health. I kinda already went over this with engineers, so I'm just gonna end it there. And, saving the best for last, Spy's staple, the knife. This is what Spy uses to deny plays and turn the tide of battle. Spy is arguably the weakest melee from the front, as while it does do 5 more damage than the bat, it attacks much slower than it. However, from behind, it does 6 times the enemy's current health. This means that the only vanilla thing that can stop a backstab is an uber charge, as it will insta-kill whoever you stab. Alright, my voice is going to sound a bit different because I'm coming back to this after 6 days of not being able to work on it. And with that, I think you have enough knowledge to play the game without worrying too much about not knowing what to do. You know a comprehensive amount of each class, and as well as the ins and outs of the game itself. You can also try out TF2's built-in training mode, but, well, it's a bit shit, and it only really helps you learn a few of the classes. Everything else is stuff you can quickly figure out by yourself, but as you can tell by the runtime, there's more to this video, and if you feel like continuing, I'll go even deeper. I'll explain nuances you would normally learn after a few hundred hours, how to get mods and custom mods like mine, tips about the economy, and useful tech for your classes. Still with me? Well, that's surprising. Let's get into it then. Now, I know what you're thinking, but can't, because that's the name that I chose from earlier, you already told us about maps. Very astute of you, my dear pupil, but I will be going into them much further. I'm not going to list off every single map because this video is going to be long enough already, but what I am going to do is tell you about maps as a concept and give you a few more useful tidbits about a few specific popular maps. First off, we're going to learn map terminology. I'm going to keep this on the simpler side for the sake of our combined sanities. Map terminology can get as complex as memorizing callout location names for every single map in the competitive rotation, but I'm just going to give you what you can use on every map. When you hear a point or a cap, that's talking about, obviously, the control point, usually for a cop. Mid is the first middle point we talked about when discussing the control points game mode. Another control point term you'll hear is last, which is a team's final point. This will usually either be their last or our last, respectively. Intel is short for intelligence, as you could probably guess. The cart is obviously the payload bomb cart. There isn't a commonplace name for them, but I hear them called slides and ramps most often. There's these sections of payload maps where the cart will either auto-slide up or down. If the cart rolls back onto this, it will either slide back down or stop there depending on the direction. Chokes or choke points are bits where spaces are tight and there isn't really any way to your destination other than going through them. Sometimes they're short, sometimes they're long. Flanks are flank routes you can take, for example the drop down we mentioned in Peel Upward, or this underwater flank in Freight, another control point map. Speaking of drop downs are places where there's a hole in the floor or a wall that you can't get back up to unless you double jump or blast jump, like this drop down on Hightower. Routes are ways to get somewhere from spawn or from a certain area on the map. Usually these take the form of rollouts, which involve getting to mid from spawn. If we look at Gully Wash, a control point map, you can see that there's a few different rollouts to do. There's also some parts of maps that are inaccessible until a certain condition is reached, that can be bypassed by certain classes. For example, if we go to CP Well, there's a setup time before these gates open, allowing players to start capping mid. There's an impromptu wall made by these train cars here that stop people from going from side to side, but Demoman or Soldier can blast jump over this and begin the fighting early. Most, if not all, maps come with sniper spots. In fact, this is so commonplace that when you run nav_generate in console, the command that teaches bots how to play on new maps, it will look for and find sniper spots. These spots, as mentioned earlier, are usually far away and secure, with a sightline and a source of ammo and health nearby. There are also spots that are kind of hard to identify to the untrained eye, where engineers thrive best in setting up their nest being the term for a sentry dispenser and exit teleporter. This little area in Borneo is great, provides a good place for your team to retreat back to your dispenser, good cover for your sentry, and a complementing sightline for that sentry right onto the point, or this bridge. Having 2 or more engineers setting up in the same place is pretty common, and when things are spaced out correctly, it can make for defenses that only an overcharge can penetrate. Now it's time to learn unlocks. Unlocks are weapons that aren't stock. There are 2 types of unlocks, and that is uniques and reskins. Reskins I won't get into very much, as they are just cosmetically different versions of existing uniques and stocks, but I am going to speedrun every unique. So, here we go. First, the Scout. The Force of Nature is a sought-after overall shotgun that fires twice as fast as the shotgun. It only has 2 shots per clip and it reloads both at once, so if you got only one shot, reloading loses the other. Its main cool to fame is its knockback, capable of sending both you and your enemies flying, allowing for funny environmental kills and cool movement tech. It also fires more pellets than the scattergun, but at slightly less damage per pellet, meaning point-blank shots are pretty much what you're going to be striving for. The Shortstop is a Derringer-looking replacement for that scattergun that, although has the shortest barrels of all scatterguns, somehow has the tightest spread, meaning that it is the most accurate. This turns Scout into a mid-range beast instead of a close-range beast. It has the same reloading gimmick as the Force of Nature. It also fires around twice as fast. It fires less pellets, but does way more damage per pellet, so it equals out. It only has 4 shots per clip. The Soda Popper is a broken Force of Nature that has added a kind of critical underneath for some reason. It also fires twice as fast, but it also reloads faster than the Fan. Unlike the Fan, however, it does not deal knockback nor have any pellet attributes. Instead, with damage done builds a height meter that when full can be activated for 6 double jumps. The Babyface Blaster is a primary for Scout that has 2 less shots, making you move 10% slower, still the fastest class but by less. However, damage done with any weapon increases a boost bar that gradually increases your speed. To put this into perspective, Sniper moves at 100% speed. Regular Scout moves at 133% speed, but a full boost Scout runs at 173% speed. There was once a day before this weapon was horribly nerfed that Scout literally outran his hitbox with this thing. However, boost is lost by taking damage and by double jumping. The Back Scout is another primary that has 2 less shots, making the Scattergun the only Scout primary to have more than 4 bullets. That can't get making Scout the only primary to have more than 4 bullets that can't get random crits and has a worse bullet spread. However, shooting an enemy from behind does mini crits, which deal 135% damage, meaning that you can one-shot light classes with a point-blank shot from behind. The Bonk Atomic Punch is a soda can that actually fucking deadly according to its nutrition facts. When consumed, Scout becomes immune to damage, but not knockback, for 8 seconds, so it's essentially your own Uber charge. Once this effect wears off, you will become slower for 5 seconds at a speed dependent on how much damage you absorb. The only caveat, other than that, is you can't attack while within your 100 effect, so use it to get past particularly dangerous places, especially places where a sentry is impeding any flanking or sneaking. The Criticola is another can that is probably deadly that gives you mini crits for 8 seconds. However, once you make an attack, you become marked for death for 5 seconds, meaning that you also take mini crit damage. And by the way, both of these take 22 seconds to recharge, but you can visit a resupply cabinet to get it back instantly. The Mad Milk is another secondary that's done by Scout. When you throw it at an enemy, it douses them in your bottled non-milk substance. An enemy covered in milk will heal their attacker by 60% of the damage dealt to them. If you milked an enemy and a demo hit them with a grenade, that demo would heal 60 health, for example. It can be thrown at yourself or at enemies to extinguish. It can be thrown at yourself or at teammates to extinguish them if they're on fire too. Doing this rewards you with a shorter recharge time. It can also be thrown at invisible spies to make them noticeable. The Winger is a pistol replacement for Scout that only has 5 shots per clip, but does 15% more damage and allows you to jump 25% higher while you're holding it. Pre-War's Pocket Pistol is another pistol replacement that gives you 3 health back on hit, probably 50% faster, but it does only have 9 shots compared to the stock pistol's 12. The Flying Guillotine is another throwing weapon for Scout that recharges after 6 seconds. A hit does 50 damage and causes bleeding for 8 seconds. Bleed reveals cloaked spies and deals 4 damage per tick. It can't get random crits, but if you hit a long distance shot with it, it reduces the recharge time. The Sandman is a bat replacement that has an alt fire. When you right click, it launches a ball that slows enemies upon impact for 1 to 7 seconds depending on the distance. It takes 10 seconds to recharge, or you can run over this ball to pick it up, recharging immediately and soliciting a response from Scout. You lose 15 max health with this, going from 125 to 110. The Candy Cane is another melee for Scout that makes you take 25% more damage from explosives. This means that demo men will one-shot you. However, every enemy you kill with this in your loadout, even if it's with your scattergun or pistol, will drop a small medkit, which heals Scout for 25 HP. The Boston Basher is a bat that causes bleed for 5 seconds on hit, but causes bleed for yourself if you miss. The Sun on a Stick does 25% less damage, but provides a 25% fire resistance and does critical damage to burning targets. The Fan of War marks enemies for death, which again causes them to take mini crit damage for 15 seconds, and it crits when it would normally mini crit, but it does 75% less damage. The Atomizer grants an additional jump while it's being yelled, allowing a triple jump, and it does mini crits if you hit someone in the air. However, it deploys 50% slower and does 50% less damage against players. The Rapid Assassin does 65% less damage, but it can launch a bauble that causes bleeding on whoever it hits, and also has a small explosion radius that damages anyone in it. The bauble breaks and cannot be picked up, but it recharges faster than the Sandman. Next is Soldier. The original is a reskin of stock, but there's one functional difference, and that's the rockets come out of the center of the screen and not the side. The direct hit has 40. The direct hit causes 25% more damage and guarantees mini-crit damage on enemies sent airborne by explosions and grappling hooks. The rockets travel 80% faster, but have 70% smaller explosion radiuses. The black box, I wrote that as the block box, only has 3 rockets, but replenishes up to 20 health per damage. The rocket jumper deals no damage, but has a shit ton of extra ammo. It's used for rocket jumping. You also can't carry the intel or the ball in the fucked up football that I mentioned earlier. The Liberty Launcher has 5 rockets that travel 40% faster but deal 25% less damage. You also take 25% less damage from rocket jumping with them. The Cowmangler 5000 has infinite ammo but still has to reload, cannot deal random crits, and deals 80% less damage to buildings. Also mini crits whenever it would normally crit, unfortunately. When fully reloaded, right click charges up a shot that depletes your clip but deals mini crits, disables buildings for 4 seconds, and deals 6 seconds of afterburn. The Pager's Bazooka starts off with 0 in the clip. Holding left click will load up to 3 rockets, and releasing left click will shoot them out rapidly. The rockets have 20% less explosion radius and travel in vaguely incorrect deviations. Loading more than 3 will cause a misfire exploding right in front of you. You also can't collect ammo from dispensers while you're holding it. The airstrike deals 50% less damage to yourself when rocket jumping and rapidly fires rockets while you're doing so. It does 50% less damage. It's a 10% smaller explosion radius, and that explosion radius decreases to 20% smaller while you're blast jumping, but for every kill you get with it, it increases the clip size up to 8 rockets per clip. The Buff Banner, the Battalion's Backup, and the Conqueror are all shotgun replacements that must be charged with damage. When fully charged, the Buff Banner grants you and nearby teammates 10 seconds of mini crits, the Battalion's Backup grants you and nearby teammates 10 seconds of full nullifying critical damage, 35% damage resistance, and 50% sentry gun resistance, and the Conqueror grants a movement speed buff and a heal on damage aspect for you and your nearby teammates. The Battalion's Backup grants a passive 20 extra base health to you. The Conqueror grants you a passive healing aspect as well. The gunboats are a shotgun replacement that don't have a combat use. They remove your secondary slot in exchange for 60% less damage taken when rocket jumping. Man Shreds are the same thing as gunboats in the way that they are boots that help you rocket jump. They make you take 75% less knockback from enemies, give you 200% more air control, which we'll get into later, and they'll deal 3 times your falling damage onto whomever you land upon. The reserve shooter can be equipped by soldier and pyro. You switch to it 20% faster and switch from it 15% faster. It also mini-crits targets that are blast jumping, knockback, or using the grappling hook. It does only have 4 shots though compared to the shotgun's 6. The Righteous Bison fucking sucks. The Righteous Bison has infinite reserve ammo, shoots a slow electric projectile that can't be air blasted and penetrates enemies. It has 4 shots and deals only 20% damage to buildings. Not listed on the stats of the weapon though, it has really bad damage, doing at practical maximum a little less than a melee swing. The base jumper can be equipped by both soldier and demo, and it is essentially just a parachute. It replaces your shotgun and lets you jump again in the air to release a parachute that slows your falling speed. You can attack with this out, by the way. Jumping again will cut the rope, so to speak, letting you fall again. The panic attack can be equipped by soldier, pyro, engineer, and heavy. It fires 50% more bullets per shot, deploys 50% faster, and fires a fixed shot pattern, ignoring random bullet spread. It does do 20% less damage, however, and the more shots you hit, the wider the spread becomes. The Equalizer and the Escape Plan are 2 different pickaxe melees for soldier. The Equalizer deals more damage the lower your health is, but causes you to be healed 90% less from medics. The Escape Plan, while active, increases your movement speed as your health decreases, but you take mini crits while it's active and a bit afterward, and you also get 90% less healing from medics. The Pain Train can be equipped by both soldier and a demo, and it makes you 10% more vulnerable to bullet damage, but essentially counts you as a scout when capturing. The Half Sadawichi can be equipped by both soldier and a demo, has a 50% longer melee range, and heals 50% of your base health on kill. It can also overheal you. It can't get random crits, it deploys and pulses 75% slower, and once it's fully drawn, putting it away damages you by 50 unless it would kill you. Then, it's fine. If you hit a player using the Toichi, it's an instant kill. The disciplinary action, unfortunately, has a 70% longer melee range. It deals 25% less damage, but it boosts you and whoever you hit speed as long as you hit an ally. The Market Gardener can't get random crits, swings 20% slower, but it deals critical damage while you're rocket jumping. Next, the Pyro. The Backburner gives guaranteed crits when attacking from behind, but the Air Blast costs 50 ammo to you instead of flamethrowers to 20. Fuck. Decreaser. It switches both to and from faster, but Air Blast costs 25 ammo and the Afterburn only does 1 damage per tick. The Phlogisticator cannot Air Blast, however, after you deal 300 fire damage, secondary fire now initiates a taunt that Ubers you while doing so, and afterward gives you guaranteed crits for a bit. The Dragon Sphere deals triple damage to people already on fire and fires faster when hitting people. Air Blast makes it so you can't fire for a second. The Flare Gun is a secondary that deals 30 damage, causes a full duration of afterburn on an enemy. If you hit a burning enemy, it deals crits, which deals 90 damage. The Detonator mini-crits instead of critting, like the Flare Gun does, and deals 25% less damage. However, it can be exploded mid-air, causing damage and afterburn to everyone in the explosion radius. The Man Melter does not require ammo. Its flares go 50% faster, and it doesn't get random crits. Alt firing extinguishes teammates, and for every teammate you extinguish, you get a guaranteed crit saved up. You also get the Flamethrower's 20 health reward for extinguishing teammates. Oh, and it's Scabbard's favorite weapon as well. The Scorch Shot does 35% less damage, and it also does mini crits and not crits against burning players. Its flares have a knockback stun, and it bounces when it hits a player. When the flare hits the ground, it explodes, igniting those around it and dealing mini crits if they were already burning. Its flares can also remove sticky bombs for whatever reason. The Thermal Thruster is a jetpack with 2 charges. When you land, it pushes nearby enemies away, and it deals 3 times your falling damage to whomever you land on. Burning teammates are extinguished if they are near you when you take off. The Gas Passer is throwable for pyro. It creates a gasoline cloud wherever it lands that lingers for a bit. Whoever walks into it becomes doused in gasoline. Those doused in gasoline ignite into afterburn whenever they take damage, even fall damage, and this also applies to enemy pyros who are usually immune to afterburn. The gas meter starts empty and cannot be filled by spawning or touching the resupply cabinet. It builds with time, but can be sped up by dealing damage. It can also be used to reveal spies, but you kind of have a flamethrower for that. The Extinguisher mini-crits burning players. Its damage scales based on how much duration was left of your afterburn, and if it kills a burning player, it grants a speed boost. But it does do 33% less damage to start, and it is put away 35% slower. The Homewrecker deals damage. The Homewrecker deals double damage against enemy buildings and can remove enemy spy sappers in one hit. It deals 25% less damage to players, however. The Power Jack restores 25 health on kill and makes you move 15% faster when it's deployed, but also makes you 20% more vulnerable to damage during that time. The Backscratcher does 25% more damage and heals you 50% more when picking up health kits. However, you receive 75% less healing from healing sources such as medics or dispensers. The Sharpened Volcano Fragment does 20% less damage but engulfs enemies in flames on a hit. The 3rd degree transfers damage through minigun beams. This means that if you hit an enemy, the medics healing them will also get hit and vice versa. Yeah, there are no downsides for this weapon at all, which is why Saber Stock Fire Axe is the worst melee. It has a direct upgrade, the only one in the game. The Neon Annihilator deals guaranteed crits to wet players and can remove sappers, but in 2 hits instead of the Homewrecker's 1. It deals 20% less damage versus players, and it can't deal random crits. The Hot Hand deals 2 quick hits when you fire. When you hit someone, you get a very brief speed boost. It deals 20% less damage though. Next, the Demo Man. The Lock and Load deals 20% more damage to buildings, has 25% faster traveling grenades, it has only 3 grenades instead of 4, and it has a 25% smaller explosion radius. Grenades don't roll, shattering on surfaces, my bad. The Alibabas Reproduce increase your maximum health by 25. When paired with a shield, which I'll get into in a minute, it increases turning speed while charging by 200%, grants 10% faster movement speed, and refills 25% your charge meter with each melee kill. This replaces your grenade launcher. The Loose Cannon fires cannonballs that knock players back, travel 20% faster, and deals both impact and explosion damage. If the impact and explosion damage someone within half a second of each other, the explosion damage will be a mini crit. This is called a double dunk. Holding the fire down will prime the fuse of the cannonballs, which is normally 1 second, to explode earlier. The Iron Bomber fires ball-shaped grenades that instead of pill-shaped, which are dense, fires ball-shaped grenades instead of pill-shaped, which are dense, not bouncing or rolling very much. They do have a 50% smaller explosion radius, however. A charge and charge replaces the sticky bomb launcher. Whenever you right-click with a full charge meter, you will charge forward at a high speed in a straight line. It's very hard to turn while charging. Also, if you melee 25% of the way through your charge, it's a mini crit. It becomes a crit at 60%. Charging also removes debuffs such as Mad Milk, Bleed, or Afterburn. It also adds a 50% resistance to enemy fire damage and a 30% resistance to enemy explosion damage. The Splendid Screen shortens those resistances to 20 for each instead of 50 and 30, but adds 70% more damage to charging into somebody. Charge also regenerates 50% faster. Tide Turner reduces those resistances even further to 15% for each, but gives full turn and control while charging. Killing someone with a melee will refill 75% of your charge meter. Taking damage while charging, however, reduces the amount of it left. The Quickie Bomb Launcher shoots stickies that can destroy enemy stickies. Arm 0.2 seconds faster, and charge up 70% faster and deal up to 35% more damage based on how much you charge them. However, they do 15% less damage base, and it has a clip size of 4 instead of a sticky bomb launcher's 8. The Scottish resistance to stickies that can also destroy enemy stickies for whatever reason, but take 0.8 second longer to arm. You carry 50% more reserve ammo, fire stickies 25% faster, and you can have up to 14 stickies out at once compared to the sticky and quickie bomb launcher's 8. You can see outlines of that's wrong. Sorry. I'm losing myself. 15 minutes, 30 seconds. Let's go. You can see outlines of your place stickies through walls, and you have to look at them to detonate them. This means you can set up multiple traps and explode them separately. The sticky jumper has a fuck ton of reserve ammo and deals no damage. It, like the rocket jumper, is used for jumping only. It can only have up to 2 stickies out at a time. Let's go over the swords. Every sword has a 50% longer melee range, deploys and holsters 75% slower, and can't get random crits, except for this stupid fucking thing. The eyelander decapitates the enemy on a killing hit, taking their head. For every head you take, it increases your speed by 7.5% and health by 15. This increases your base speed and health. You can have up to 4 heads at a time. Killing an enemy who also has the eyelander will steal whatever heads they have. Upon death, you lose your heads and their bonuses, and you start off with 25 less health in the beginning. The Scotsman Skull Cutter, yes, that is the Scotsman Skull Critter, yes, that is the real name of it, deals 20% more damage but lowers your speed by 15% while it's active. This is the only sword that can get random crits, which is weird considering how the crit chances work. The Claymore refills 25% your charge meter on kill and adds another half second to your charge duration. While it's active, you do take 15% more damage though. The Persian Persuader refills 20% your charge meter on hit, and it allows ammo kits to recharge your charge meter. It also removes 80% of the max ammo of your primary and secondaries though, so don't use it unless you're going full demo knife. You also can't get ammo from for your launchers from ammo kits until your charge is full, so yeah, really don't use them unless you're going full demo knife. The Ulupul Caver swings 20% slower and can't get random crits, and is switched to 100% slower. Hitting an enemy makes the grenade explode, damaging both the user and anyone in the explosion radius. Moving on to Heavy. Halfway there, fuck me. But Natasha deals 25% less damage and it spins up 30% slower. However, if you're spun up at and at 149 health or lower, so half health or lower, you get 20% damage resistance. On hit, it also slows enemies down. The Brass Beast gets the same damage resistance as the Natasha and does 20% more damage, but spins up 50% slower, slows you down by 60% more when it's active as well. The Tomislav spins up 20% faster and is 20% more accurate. It also doesn't make a noise while revved, however it fires 20% slower. The Huolong Heater creates a ring of fire around you while spun up, and it also deals 25% more damage against burning players. It also deals 10% less damage overall though, and wastes 4 ammo a second while spun up. The Sandwich is a shotgun replacement that, when consumed, fully heals you. Alt-Fire throws it, where it can be picked up by anybody, acting as a medium health kit. You can also pick it up again to refill the charge meter. Eating it while at full health won't do anything. If your health is full, picking up a health kit will recharge your Sandwich no matter what. I snapped there for some reason. The Thracos Bar restores only 100 health, and it acts as a small health kit when thrown. It increases your base health by 50 for 30 seconds, and it recharges faster. The Buffalo Steak Sandwich doesn't heal you, but makes it so all your damage is mini crits for 16 seconds. During that time, you will also move 30% slower. However, during this time, you take 30% faster. However, during this time, you take 20% more damage, and you can only use melee. The second banana heals 200 health, not 300 like the Sandwich. It acts as a small health kit when thrown. It also recharges faster. The Family Business fires 50% faster and holds 8 shots, but deals 50% less damage. The Killing Gloves of Boxing swings 20% slower, but grants 5 seconds of crits for all weapons on kill. The Gloves of Running Urgently grants 30% more movement speed when active, but base health is drained while active, as well as a slower switch from speed. Base health is regained slowly over time after you put it away. The Warrior Spirit deals 30% more damage and restores 50 health on kill at the cost of taking 30% more damage while active. A Fist of Steel gives you a 40% resistance to range damage of any kind. However, it gets put away 100% slower. You take 100% more damage from melees while it's active, and you get 40% less health from healers and 40% less max overheal. The Eviction Notice swings 40% faster and gives you a 3-second speed boost on hit. On top of that, you also move 50% faster while it's active. However, you do 60% less damage, and maximum health is also drained, similar to the Gloves of Running Urgently. The Holiday Punch forces enemies to laugh when it's a crit, and you always crit from behind. If your enemy is also wearing these, they will laugh no matter what on hit. However, critical hits do no damage. After the heavy comes the engineer. The Frontier Justice has only 3 shots, but stores 2 guaranteed crits for every kill your sentry gets, and 1 kill for every assist it gets. Once your sentry is destroyed, these crits get applied to you. The Widowmaker uses metal as ammo and does 10% more damage if you're shooting the target of your sentry. You get ammo back when you hit your targets, which is based on damage, but actually has a higher than 1-to-1 ratio. This means that if you need metal, hitting a few good shots will likely prop you up back to 200. It does consume 30 metal per shot, so you need to have at least that much though. It also doesn't have a clip size, meaning there's no V-load involved. The Thompson 6000 shoots a slow, shitty electronic projectile and has a 4-shot clip size, though it doesn't need ammo. The projectile cannot be reflected, it deals only 20% damage to buildings, but successful shots make medics lose 10% of their reserve charge and spies lose 20% of their cloak. The Rescue Ranger has 4 shots per clip, carries 50% less reserve ammo, and heals your buildings less, but its shots can heal buildings from afar, and you can pick up buildings from anywhere as long as you can see it. This costs 100 metal to do, however, and you mark yourself for death when you pick it up and for a few seconds after you put it down. Oh, my throat hurts. The Wrangler shields your sentry from 66% of all damage when you pull it out and allows you to manually take control of where it fires. When you do this, your sentry shoots twice as fast, has a slight lock-on property, while the shield is up. Ammo and repairs given to the sentry are reduced by 66%. If you switch weapons or dive, the sentry gun remains shielded, but deactivated for 3 seconds. Oh, and there's a hidden stat where, as you use it, it slowly decreases the lifetime of your loved one. It's true, look it up. The short circuit doesn't require a reload using metal as ammo like the Widowmaker. It consumes 5 metal per shot, and it doesn't really go that far. It can be crit boosted, it can't be crit boosted, can't get random crits, and you can't pick up buildings when it's active. It has an alt fire that consumes 65 metal, but shoots a giant energy ball that fizzles out all projectiles that it collides with. The Gunslinger is a melee replacement that replaces the sentry gun with an unupgradable mini-sentry. This mini-sentry builds 150% faster and only costs 100 metal. It also fires 50% faster and turns 35% faster. However, it does 50% less damage and 33% less, and it has 33% less health. Aside from the mini-sentry, it also increases your health from 125 to 150 and gets a guaranteed crit on a 3rd successful melee punch in a row. The Sudden Hospitality makes you 20% more vulnerable to fire, I guess, but causes 5 seconds of bleed when hitting enemies, so it's pretty much just an upgrade. The Jag makes hitting your building speed up the building process by 30% more and swings 15% faster. However, it repairs things 20% slower and does 25% less damage, which increases to 33% when meleeing enemy buildings. The Eureka effect is a 50% slower construction speed hit boost, construction hit speed boost, and makes you get 20% less metal from dispensers and ammo kits and whatnot. However, teleporters are both 50% cheaper to construct and upgrade, and pressing the reload key will let you teleport to either your spawn or your teleporter exit, even if it's not active. Next up is the Medic. The Bloodsaga reduces your inherent health regeneration by 2 HP a second, but it heals 3 health on hit. Oh, that was a belch. The Crusader's Crossbow is a crossbow that heals your ally from 75 to 150 depending on range. It also has damage that scales at range as well. You also carry 75% less reserve ammo. Also listed as a stat, probably just caveat emptor, you can't get headshots with this. The Overdose increases your movement speed by up to 20% depending on how full your overcharge is, but it does 50% less damage. 15, not 50. The Kritzkrieg replaces the invulnerability of the minigun for guaranteed crits. It also builds Uber 25% faster. It's also worth noting that the Kritzkrieg and the Vaccinator allow the medic and Uber recipient the ability to capture points and carry the intel, unlike the stock minigun. The Quick Fix heals 40% faster, increases the overcharge rate by 10%, and allows you to mirror a shield charge or blast jump of your healing target. It replaces the invulnerability with 3 times healing rate on both you and your healer, and it makes you immune to stun and damage forces. It does allow you and your healing target to carry the intelligence while Ubered. The Vaccinator gives you 3 different resistances to cycle through using the reload key. These provide 10% resistances to the damage type represented. Its supercharge is broken into 4 segments and lasts 2.5 seconds. Each supercharge lasts for 2.5 seconds. It grants 75% general resistances and 100% crit resistances of the damage type selected at the time of Ubering to both you and your patient. It builds Uber 65% faster, but it's 33% slower in overhealed patients, and it also overheals 66% slower. The Uber saw is a better stock. It fills 27 Uber on hit, and its only price is 20% slower firing speeds, so it's just better stock. The Vitasaw lowers your base health from 150 to 140, but allows you to collect organs of dead people. For every organ you collect, 50% of your overcharge is retained on death, capping at 60%. The Amputator heals 25 health a second to all nearby teammates, up to about 75 health when taunting. You also regenerate 3 health more a second, however it does deal 20% less damage. The Solemn Vow is also better than stock, but not quite as good as the Uber Saw, as you can see the health of enemies with it, with the only catch being 10% slower firing speed. Now, the Sniper, a Huntsman charges 70% faster and lets you move 96% faster than being scoped in when you're drawing back an arrow. However, it has 20% less max charge damage, no random crits, 48% less reserve ammo, and the arrows can be both air blasted and shot down. The Sydney Sleeper replaces headshot crits with mini crits, has a 25% faster charging rate, and applies the effects of Girardi on whoever you hit for 2 to 5 seconds, depending on how charged you are. It also can shoot burning teammates to extinguish them. The Bizarre Bargain has a 50% slower charge speed, but for every headshot kill you get, you charge shots 25% faster, up to a maximum of 200% faster. The Machina deals 15% damage on more damage on charged shots, which also penetrate through enemies, hitting everyone in the line of the bullet. It can't no-scope, and its shots have a team-colored tracer leading back to you. The Hitman Seat Maker deals 20% less damage on body shot. You also have a focus bar that fills on kills and assists. Once full, pressing your reload key will make you charge shots 25% faster, but also having the Machina's tracers. The meter will slowly empty, but it can be recharged while it's being used. The Classic doesn't need to have the fire button held down, or to have the scope button. It doesn't need to be scoped to charge up shots, it needs to have the fire button held down to charge up shots, but you can charge shots without zooming in. But you can't headshot unless you're fully charged. You also do 10% less damage on body shots and have a much slighter yet still visible tracer than the Hitman Seat Maker. The Girardi is a secondary that lets you exercise your piss kink. Enemies coded in Girardi take mini crits, exposes spies, and it can be used to extinguish teammates. Extinguishing enemies with teammates with your Girardi recharge 20% faster. The Razorback removes your secondary but gives you a shield in return. This shield blocks a single backstab attempt on you, shocking the spy for no damage, but preventing him from attacking and switching weapons for a few seconds. The Darwin's Danger Shield is for pussies. You get 50% fast fire damage resistance and an immunity to afterburn at the expense of your secondary. The Cozy Camper removes you flinching at damage once you fully charge, and it reduces your knockback by 20% while aiming. It also regenerates up to 4 health a second, but you also lose your secondary. The Cleaner's Carbine does 25% less damage and has a 20% smaller clip size, but builds a Crikey meter with damage. Alt fire to activate the Crikey meter for 8 seconds of mini crits among all your weapons. The Tribalman's Shiv does 50% less damage, but causes 6 seconds of bleed. The Bushwhacker gives you 20% less damage, it gives you a 20% damage vulnerability, but crits whenever normally mini crit. If you use this, you're probably a cunt. The Shansha does 20% less damage when you're over half health, but does 25% more damage when you're below half health. And finally, the Spy. Almost there. The Ambassador does 15% less damage, fires 20% slower, but gets critical headshots with damage varying with range from 102 to 54. The L'Étranger does 20% less damage, but gives you 40% longer cloak duration and refills 50% of your cloak meter on a hit. The Enforcer fucking sucks. It fires 20% slower, but pierces through enemy resistances and does 20% more damage when you're disguised. Too bad shots drop your disguise, so enjoy redisguising between each shot. The Diamondback is not overpowered, and it does 15% less damage, but stores a crit with no damage fall-off for every backstab, kill, and building destroyed with a Sapper. The Your Eternal Ward instantly disguises you as your backstab victim and hides their corpse at the cost of 33% shorter cloak duration and losing all your cloak upon a manual disguise. Backstabs with this don't appear in the kill feed, and you have to have an entire cloak meter to disguise fully. The Conniver's Kunai reduces your base health from 70, but steals the amount of your 270, but steals the amount of health your victim has, with the minimum being 75 and the maximum being 210. Yes, Spy can temporarily become healthier than the Soldier this way. The Big Earner grants a 3-second speed boost and 30% cloak refill on any kill, not just backstabs, at the cost of 25 less health. The Spycicle turns your victims to ice and melts in fire. However, when it melts in fire, you become completely immune to fire for a whole second and gain afterburn immunity for 10 seconds. The Cloak and Dagger replaces the Invis Watch. It recharges 100% faster, and Cloak is consumed based on movement. This means that when you're standing still, you will regain Cloak, even while actively cloaked. However, you do get 35% less Cloak from ammo kits, and you cannot refill Cloak in conventional ways while invisible. The Deadringer does not cloak on demand. Instead, it fakes your death whenever you take damage, dropping a fake corpse behind you and cloaking instantly. It reduces the amount of damage of the attack. It reduces the damage of whatever attack triggered it by 35%, then further damage by 65 to 20%, decreasing for the next 3 seconds. It also lasts 40% longer and regenerates 50% faster and removes the bump shimmer of being cloaked for a bit. On top of all that, it also gives you 3-second speed boost. However, ammo kits and dispensers will not refill the cloak meter. Triggering it will immediately cut half of your cloak. It has to be a full cloak to trigger, and it has a really loud, very distinct decloak sound. Lastly, the red tape recorder. A lot of people will tell you this weapon sucks, and it will when you're beginning, but once you're getting good at spy, it can actually be pretty good. It does no damage, but reverses the construction of buildings, including upgrades. This means that it can de-upgrade buildings. Stop. Oh, 30 minutes and 5 seconds. I talked for half an hour. Oh, that was half an hour. Oh, my fucking throat hurts. I'm doing this after I bit my tongue as well. Like, I bit a chunk out of it in my sleep a few nights ago. Oh, fuck. Okay, I'm gonna take a break. Oh, holy shit. Alright, after giving my lungs time to recover, it's time to talk about movement. There are plenty of movement aspects to know of in TF2, and, especially from here on out, I encourage you to look up more in-depth videos that are specifically about things that you want to know more about. However, I will go over most of the important things you should probably know. First off is crouch jumping. If you are absolutely new to Source games, there's one defining thing to note about the game engine that makes it much better than the alternatives, besides it just kind of being better, and that is crouching. In most games, for an unfathomable reason, the physics engine, I believe, brings your torso down when you crouch. However, if you've ever crouched in real life, you know that's not really crouching, that's just bending over. In reality, crouching is bringing your legs up, which is what Source does. This means that to get over obstacles, jumping while crouched will tuck your legs in mid-air and let you get over taller things. If you've ever tried to jump onto something a bit off the ground without using your hands, you realize that this is essentially the same thing. Next, backpedaling. Backpedaling is simply just holding S, but there's one thing to know that most beginners don't, and that's going forward, leftward, or rightward are faster than going backward, which actually slows you down. Next, peak double jumping. Or at least that's what I'm calling it. Scout can jump twice, once in the air, and this is usually done to achieve greater heights or cover longer distances. However, no matter the momentum, Scout's second jump happens at a set speed and a vertical distance up. This means that if you jump and jump again really fast, you'll actually not go much higher. It takes a bit to build muscle memory, but if you consistently play Scout, you should probably get the hang of jumping right when you stop going up, because that's the way you'll get the most height. Now, air braking. Air braking is when you hold the movement key opposite of the direction you're going. This can be done in pretty much any direction, not just backward, and it's useful for many different classes. I personally see the most use of it when performing stair stabs as spy, as the forward air brake makes sure that I don't sail over my target. Related to air braking, air strafing. Air strafing is kind of awkward to word, but essentially, assuming that you're going forward, you can press either A or D and smoothly move the mouse along with it to curve your trajectory mid-air. And doing this actually builds speed too, so once you get good out of it, you can kind of just create speed on demand in the air. This is how Medic and Spy can make the 2-fort bridge jump like Scout. Oh, and try not to hold the keys in the same directional axis where your starting momentum is going. That is, if you're running forward in the rocket jump or whatever you're going to air strafe out of, let go of W and just use A and D after you're in the air. Also, very important, there's kind of a limit to how fast you can move your mouse, but enough testing and fucking about and you'll learn what it is. And lastly, surfing. If you've ever seen a Counter-Strike game on the internet, chances are you've heard of surfing. In TF2, it can be the same thing, as there are surf maps, but there's also a second kind. These two kinds, for the purpose of this video, I will dub as movement surfing and damage surfing. Movement surfing is essentially done by getting directional momentum and holding the strafe key into an angled surface, looking alongside where you're going with the mouse. This can be useful during actual games, like this good path for spies on Snowy Coast Last, where you can pass over this gate without being discovered, but it's largely apparent on custom maps made for surfing. The other kind of surfing is damage surfing, and it is both more useful and simpler in-game. Damage of almost any kind will knock you back, even if it's just a bit. This knockback sends you in the direction opposite of where the damage is coming from. This means that you can manipulate this to your own advantage. This may sound super difficult, and it will be until you engrave some source movement into your brain, like any good TF2 player, but it becomes learnable, consistent, and very useful once you practice it for a bit. Now it's time to talk about modding. First off, I'm going to toss you to future me and tell you how to both get your custom folder running, which is what you'll need for mods, and how to set up a master config. If you're confused on what exactly that is, it's this. Now, this may seem like utter dog shit, and yes, it is in fact utter dog shit, but that's because I made it that way. You can make it however you want. Anyway, here's future me. Alright, hello. Future me here. This section is unscripted, so bear with me. I'm going to be walking you through how to get a master config as well as how to set up your custom folder. The first step, open up your file explorer, go to wherever your Team Fortress is, so common, Team Fortress 2, TF, and then just put a folder that says custom here. I think, no, this isn't already part of it. Yeah, so put your folder that says custom here, and essentially all of your shit that you have for mods or whatever is going to go in here, pretty much. Now, master config. First off, open up your browser of choice. You're going to want to go to master config, I think it's .app. Yeah, config.app, sorry, config.app. And from here, it's going to show you some specs, some whatever bullshit bollocks. You don't really give a shit about this, pretty much. You want down here where it says launch master config, click on that. And then you can choose a preset. As you can see, Ultra has everything, you know, high DirectX level. You've got your outlines, you've got your lighting, your rain effects. And then you've got all the way down here where it's literally as bare bones as you could get. As it says, I do not suggest this because it does get rid of a lot of shit that you need for better. I usually, you know, low is, you know, as it says right here, max performance without caring too much about, you know, visual glitch shit. I usually build mine off of this, but I also have an Ultra as well. I recorded a lot of this video with Ultra, so essentially, yeah, whatever. You're gonna go through here in modules. You're gonna go through and you're going to select all the shit that you want. The only thing I suggest is making sure that you leave water pretty high. I think it's at least either medium or medium high. Simply because if you go too low, you won't be able to see through it. The amount is just low. So keep it at a level where you can see through it, just because you want to be able to see through the water, obviously. And then other than that, you can change, you know, your anti-aliasing, your motion blur, which you should have off if you're a sane human being. And all of this, again, I keep mine at pretty much low of everything. I do suggest keeping this on. It removes all this useless shit that you don't need and it's kind of distracting, but it does also highlight spaces that are put underneath ammo kits and med kits. So if you're playing on a new map that you don't know the locations of, maybe someone took this and so it's not respawned yet, and you can't see the fact that it's there, so you wouldn't know to wait for it. But yeah. And then once you're done with all that, you can go in here to binds, choose whatever binds you want if you want to quickly rebind any, you know, whatever. And then once you're done, you can also go to weapons and have custom crosshairs. I just keep mine as a solid outlined circle for everything, but you can go through and change what everything is for not every weapon, but most of the weapons. And then, of course, when you're done, explosion effects too. When you're done, you can select any add-ons you want, such as getting rid of the Pyroland textures, or the tutorial messages not showing up, or removing like ambient map noise like wood creaking or owls hooting or whatever. And then, yeah, this section right here, copy that, properties, you put it in here. I've got a bunch of other shit in here, don't worry, just put it in there. And then download that. When you have that downloaded, go into your downloads and extract it. I don't know where my most recent one is. There you go. This one had one in it. You extract it. You should go to TF folder. Inside that, it should be a custom folder and a CFG folder. In custom, you should find config custom and your actual config itself. Put those in there. And then in the CFG folder, you should find a folder that says app and a folder that says overrides. Just toss both of those in the CFG folder. Both the custom and CFG are in your TF2 TF directory. Yeah, essentially that's it. Back to past me. I recorded this video with Ultra on so far to make it look more like your natural TF2, but now that you know what master config is, I'll be recording the rest of it with that on, unless something really needs to be seen at the highest quality possible. Next, I'll be giving you some important commands. Now, knowing that there's a chance that something somewhere in your files will override some bits of your master config, I'm going to start this with giving you another command, mat_vsync. If you are either the owner of a particularly rubbish computer, or you're like me and most TF2 professionals who begin to find lower quality setups easier to play with, you've probably made your config a bit shit. This may include turning vsync off or keeping it on. Regardless, TF2 kind of likes to say fuck you to whatever vsync setting you choose, especially if it's modded, so you may want to make sure that this is on or off depending on what you want via the console before loading into a game and potentially crash or break a few mods changing it. Next, interp. Interp is a funny network term that essentially, for you, means lag. The higher the interp, the more lag, which has its upsides and downsides, but I will cut you if you use. And the lower interp is the less lag, which has its upsides and downsides too, but mostly upsides. Lerp, for lack of better wording, is essentially fake lag given to you, I assume to make the game a little more natural looking or smooth. Don't know, don't care. Regardless, I usually put mine at the lowest possible, which theoretically reduces my lag by around 15 ms. The commands I use to do that are this. I'm not saying that. If you choose to use this, I'd suggest binding it to a key, as it likes to reset itself, and you can only change the setting while dead, spectating, or a very brief moment after respawning. And one more, mat_fong. Mat_fong is yet another purely visible command that, like the different DX levels, give performance enhancements and sometimes make the game more comprehensible depending on the person. When I set it to 1, it removes a lot of reflections and shines and effects like that, which may sound bad, but people actually praise it sometimes for looking more like classic TF2. More notably, it usually gives a slight FPS boost, and I've heard it can even help with ping, but I'm not certain enough to confirm that. Now, some of these things may reset every time TF2 closes, and you'll find yourself having to enter the commands again and again each time you open up TF2. To optimize this, we can create an auto-exec file. Its function is in the name, in that it automatically executes commands upon startup. Just put whatever commands you want to be set into it and save. Note that this is not a .txt file, and it will not work if it is a .txt file. What you actually want is a .cfg file, like you see in the CFG folder in the TF directory of TF2. Now, if you haven't gotten a config, just toss this in the CFG folder. If you have got a master config, you'll need to put it in either the app or overrides folder. I just put one in both to be safe. Finally, right-click TF2 in your Steam library, hit Properties, and add the command +exec autoexec.cfg, and that's it. Now it'll run every time you open the game. Almost done, just hang on for a bit longer. Next up is the community. You may be wondering why I left this alone until like the end-ish of the video, and that's simply because it's pretty insignificant in terms of what this video aims to accomplish. Regardless, allow me to discuss a few things. First off is community servers. These servers usually have moderation teams, increased player limits, custom maps, adverts, and more. In fact, that Versus Saxon Hail game mode I mentioned earlier used to be a community game mode, sometimes called Versus Saxon Hail, but also known for a very similar mode called Freak Fortress, which still has running servers today. One very useful map that pretty much anyone can benefit from is TR_walkway, usually TR_walkway_RC2. Walkway is a training / experimenting / whatever the fuck you want map in which you customize about speed, behaviors, map elements, etc. Just know that you'll need to go into the console and type that, or else the bots will rebel. Along with this, there are also maps that benefit certain classes, such as community jump maps or things like TR_corner stab for spy. I'm going to get into the economy now, but I'm going to keep it simple, both because I'm tired of writing and because I don't want to say anything that ends up being false or changed over the years, or anything that can hinder you. TF2 trading consists of 4, previously 5 currencies. The first one is the worthlessest, and that is scrap metal, or scrap. See all those weapons in the Manco store in-game? Yeah, all of those are worth half a scrap, or a scrap is worth 2 of them. So scrap metal is like a few dollars then, right? Because that's what the weapons are? No, it's actually less than a cent. Yeah, don't buy anything from the Manco store besides taunts and keys. Next is reclaimed metal, or rec, which is worth 3 scrap metal. After rec is refined, or ref, which is 3 rec. And keys are worth anywhere from 65 to 75 rep around the time of posting this, but if you're watching this in 2030, which, holy shit, 2030 isn't that far away, the prices have probably inflated a bit since now. Now, like all people should do with money, you should destroy it. However, if you choose to partake in the wonders and glories of capitalism and spend it, there are a few sites you should know of. First, Scrap.tf. Scrap.tf is known for overpricing their items a bit, but it is very convenient when selling and buying smaller insignificant shit. After Scrap, I'd make sure you learn about Backpack.tf. Backpack.tf is a place where you can do pretty much everything on Scrap cheaper, but slower. On Scrap, you can queue up a bunch of items and quick sell a bunch of shit because it's optimized for bot trading, which is all that's on Scrap. Backpack is made for player trading, and while there are bot accounts, it's known for its actual player-to-player trading. 2 other websites I'd look into are Manco.store, a place for selling and trading TF2, Dota 2, CSGO, I guess CS2 now, and Rust items that's known for lower prices, and Quicksell.store, which I hear is also pretty significant, but I don't know enough about it to confidently explain. Again, this is just an overview. I would watch a dedicated video if you want to know more about the TF2 economy. Alright, honest, I didn't look forward to making this section. This means a lot of research and a lot of watching informational videos, but I decided, fuck it, I need to include this in a How to TF2 video, no matter how general. That, and it's a productive informational use of my time, unlike the hours and hours and hours I spent writing the script of Section 5. Just know that I, lamentably, am a spy main, which means that I don't know very much about the other classes' hyper-specific techs like I do spy, and the only other person I can ask that's good enough at a class to give me techs is Rock, who only knows a lot of shit about sniper. So, if one particular segment is bigger than the rest, blame it on that. In fact, most of them are probably going to be on the shorter side anyway. Let's just start with Scout. With the Force of Nature, you can do a thing called Force Jumping. Force Jumping is where, you know how I said you can jump with the Force of Nature by shooting into the ground to get an extra, little height advantage there? Yeah, Force Jumping specifically is where you look forward, look down a little bit, like 45 degrees-ish, and then you jump and shoot there while moving forward, and it'll send you up way higher than normal. This is called Force Jumping, and it's used to get onto much higher to reach places, balconies, or for example, this little waiting spot on Hightower. The Force of Nature knockback is also scaling with momentum for some reason, so if you jump off of a building and you're going down really, really fast, if you turn behind you and shoot, you will then send yourself forward really, really fast. This is also called Force Boosting, where when you jump and you have a speed advantage or whatever, looking behind you and shooting will speed you up more. And it's weird because when you do this at regular scout speed, you actually lose speed a little bit by the looks of it. But if you do it while you have a bunch of pre-existing movement speed from falling or from, surfing something usually, the force boosting actually speeds you up quite a bit, and it can be used to catch up to people. Oh, my nose. Oh, I'm doing this with sick as well. Boston Basher jumping is when you use the Boston Basher as Scout to hit yourself on purpose mid-air to actually gain height. This does mean you take damage and hit yourself, giving yourself bleed. However, you can get to higher places with it, should you need it. The Boston Basher can also be used to build Ubers faster. Essentially, this works because Medic's Medigun builds Uber faster when you're healing players that are taking damage. So, when you're constantly taking damage with the Boston Basher, you're actually building your Medic's Uber faster when he's healing you. Last thing I've got for Scout is Fake Falling. Fake Falling is a pretty simple but, overlooked combat technique of Scouts, where during mid-fight, if you have a ledge next to you, like say you're fighting on a roof, at the two-fort bridge, for example. If you're fighting on there, you can deliberately walk off the edge to bait their movement into thinking you're going to drop down and then immediately double jump back up onto the roof. A lot of experienced players can kind of predict this, but it does help against a lot more casual or beginner players, so have fun with that. Next up is the Soldier. First is B-hop gardening. B-hopping in Source games is essentially when you jump right when you hit the ground, like usually frame perfect, you can build up speed. This kind of exists in TF2, as with this clip that I took a few months ago. However, it's kind of neutered. If you look at something like Counter-Strike Source, you can see people B-hopping across the map at 75 miles an hour. But in TF2, it's not usually, there's a speed cap. There's a speed cap. However, in all Source games, including TF2, B-hopping convinces the game engine that you're still in the air, and if you rocket jump and B-hop when you land, it'll convince you that you're still rocket jumping, even though you're not. This can lead to B-hop gardens, where using the Market Gardener, which gives you crits when you rocket jump, if you hit the ground, you can B-hop and keep B-hopping to keep convincing the game that you are still rocket jumping, thus still having the crit. C-tap rocket jumping exists too. Let me explain what C-tapping is. C-tapping is where you crouch and then midway through crouching you jump. C-tap rocket jumping is when you crouch, you do that C-tap, right? But you shoot as you jump, therefore the explosion hits you when you're even closer to the ground than just being crouched, meaning that it sends you much, much further with one rocket. Pogoing is another rocket jump tech for Soldier, where essentially you just kind of keep shooting rockets at the ground to keep, rocket jumping. One important thing to note, though, is that the faster you go, the less down you have to look and the more forward you have to look. Sinking is another rocket jump tech that I'm not very good at, so I don't know. Future editing me may have put my own footage, may have put someone else's footage, I'm not sure. But essentially, it's when you jump down and you fire rockets, next to each other, hit the ground, wait for the rockets to come down to you, and then shoot the ground when those rockets hit you, essentially jumping with multiple rockets at a time, which sends you much further. Next is the Beggar's Bazooka taunt holding. Essentially what this is when you load up those 3 rockets in the Beggar's Bazooka, usually if you keep loading them, they'll start exploding. However, if you taunt, say the high 5 taunt, which is silent, you can hold your rockets, and once the taunt is over, then you release them. This can be used to bait people into thinking you want a high 5, and in reality when it's over they die, or even loading up rockets around a corner and then doing a taunt to peek around the corner using third person, and then get out of the taunt right when they round the corner for a surprise attack. Airstrike pogoing is weird, it's almost like airstrike surfing. I'm not sure if I can do this myself again, so maybe someone else's footage. But essentially what it is since the airstrike fires faster when you're rocket jumping, you can, essentially ride the ground. Usually it's done with ramps, but when you rocket jump up to a ramp, you can keep shooting rockets at the ramp as you slide up it, essentially doing a really quick pogo, or shooting rockets while you're surfing. This isn't really a tech, it's just something to note that is good for soldiers, and I fucking hate, and that's the disciplinary action. Has more range than the swords. I think I mentioned this earlier. However, it's It's something to keep in mind because you can literally crouch and look downish and hit people behind you. That's how big the range is. So if you're using disciplinary action, I can't believe I'm advocating for this, but make sure that you remember to keep in mind that you have range you can abuse. Next up is Pyro. First up is Det jumping, or detonator jumping. Detonator jumping is where you use the detonator to, I guess, have your own little rocket jump. Essentially, if you hold right click and fire, it will detonate the flare immediately. This means that if you're running, you can look behind you, look down at the ground, crouch jump, and then hold right click and fire, and you can like have a little mini rocket jump as Pyro. This also works with the Scorch Shot. However, it doesn't go as far and it's less consistent because you have to actually hit the ground, you can't detonate it manually. It also works with the flare gun on specific parts of certain maps, but it's barely useful, so I'm not going to go into it. Next up is Flog Cancelling. The Flog has a kind of weird hidden stat about it where, I mean, maybe it's not hidden, but a weird stat about it where when you do that oomph taunt where you have the Uber, you're immune to knockback while it's happening. Yeah, that's because if for whatever reason you get pushed out of that taunt, you keep the Uber and the crits. So if you're standing on, say, the payload cart, right, and you have full oomph and you taunt on top of it, as it like goes under you, you will fall off, like it goes out from under you, my bad. As it goes out from under you, you will fall off and cancel the taunt, giving you full control of your movement and attack, but your Uber will stay on you for however long that taunt had left. So if you do it and fall off right when the beginning of a taunt gets, you essentially get a Pyro stock flamethrower taunt worth of Uber as well. And you can use your crits earlier, which means they technically last longer. Reflect jumping is another tech for Pyro, where essentially if a soldier or demo whatever shoots a rocket at you or some sort of explosive, you can reflect it into the ground behind you and rocket jump with it. This also leads to another tech called Pyro Gardening, where once you reflect jump or a detonator jump, if you can get flames on someone, usually via flare gun, and pull out the extinguisher, hitting them essentially is like a market garden because you're hitting them with the afterburn thing of the extinguisher. For demo, there's increased melee range if you swing and then charge. Most of the time you'll charge for a little bit, then swing, but if someone's just out of reach, but they're like, you'll know they will die in one hit, you can swing, but before your swing finishes, charge, and that'll actually boost your melee range for some reason. Tripping is this thing you can do with your shields where essentially if there's an inclined surface you can charge into it and then fly. There's more in-depth videos out there and I don't feel like going into it because there's a lot of nuances, but essentially watch Solar Light. And next is Sticky Double Jumping. Sticky Double Jumping is when you shoot a sticky onto the ground and then shoot a sticky at a certain angle in the air and then crouch jump, detonate that sticky, and then as you're sailing forward, you should fly up above the second sticky you shot that should still be in the air by this time, and then detonate that midair, so essentially you get 2 sticky jumps once in midair. It's not very useful, but it's cool. Heavy. Jump revving. Jump revving is a very important tech for heavy that you'll need to know. Essentially, if you jump and then start revving, you still have all your momentum in the air, meaning you don't really slow down until you actually hit the ground. And since the Tomislav revs up faster, you can actually lose 0 speed and be, like, pseudo-revved all the time. Next, stopping Ubers with the Holiday Punch. If you use the Holiday Punch and you hit an Ubered player from behind, it still makes them laugh, therefore making them not be able to do anything with their Uber until the laugh is over, which is hilarious and competitively viable sometimes. Next is tap firing. Tap firing makes you fire a little slower because instead of holding down mouse 1, you're like pressing mouse 1 at determined increments, but it makes you a lot more accurate, which can increase your DPS. Next is eating quietly. If you hear a heavy eating, chances are they're probably low health, and even though that food will bring them back up to higher health, you know that if they're eating, they can't do anything while doing so. So if you do a voice line right, like milliseconds after the eating voice line starts, you can pretty much never show off your eating sound. Next is upgrading medkits with your sandwich. So since the sandwich and all other lunchbox items, but sandwich is most useful here, their bar gets replenished if you pick up a medkit while you're at full health, you can essentially upgrade small medkits. So not only can you throw them onto small medkits, so now it's a small medkit and a medium medkit, or whatever the equivalent of your thing is. If you're at like 1 health and you eat a sandwich, you will go back up to 300 health, and then that small medkit that normally would have given you less than 100 health, you can walk over it to get your sandwich back. So essentially, that small medkit healed you 300 health. And the next and final tech that I have for heavy is Gloves of Burning Urgently plus Buffalo Steak Sandwich loadout. And that is, their speed boosts actually stack, so when you eat the steak, you'll get a speed boost, but you can only use your melee. And if the Gloves of Burning Urgently is your melee, you have a speed boost while holding them out, and they stack, so you can actually get to like mid really, really, really fast. Just don't take damage while you're doing it, because the glue will lower your max health and the steak will give you a damage vulnerability. But if you're just rolling out to mid like right when the game starts, then it should be fine. For engineer, I have jumping off your buildings, which essentially you can put buildings down, and even before they're done building, you can jump on them to reach new heights and new build places. You can upgrade before bringing your buildings out, and by that I mean if you say, for example, you're on Upward and you want to have a level 3 over by your first point, but you don't want to have to like go back and forth between ammo packs to upgrade it, you can build all your shit right outside your spawn door, and then spend all your metal upgrading it, then go back, touch the resupply cabinet, and then upgrade it again, and then once it's all level 3, then you run out there and take it over there. So essentially, you just kind of show up to the scene with level 3 shit instead of having to build shit there. Next up is building cover. This is for sentries. Most commonly, it's seen with level 2s, like for example, this Badwater last bit, where if you build your sentry, a level 2 sentry on this ramp, it has full access to everything in its range, but people can only see its barrel, so it's much harder to hit, all retaining all of its combat stuff. Next is getting metal twice as fast when standing on dispensers. So, essentially, it's not necessarily you get twice the metal, because your metal goes down twice as fast too. You just pick it up twice as fast when you're standing on top of a dispenser, which is really weird, but it's true. Next is Wrangler jumping. If you decide to use the Wrangler, this is going to be the only use for it that I actually am okay with, and that's if you shoot yourself with your sentry, whether it's with bullets or with level 3's rockets, you can either bullet jump or rocket jump, which lets you, reach new heights and do cool new shit as engineer. Short circuit jumping is weird. Essentially, if you fire the ball, like the giant energy ball, right when you're next to someone, or like but touching someone, it kind of gives you knockback for some reason. It's weird. It does hurt you though. Also, don't heal buildings you put down. You're wasting metal. It heals by itself, and you can be instead shooting whoever's damaging it, and B, saving metal, because when you hit it, it doesn't really do anything to help it heal faster, because it's already self-healing, but it does take your metal. Next is medic, which is actually my smallest section. So Uber flashing is where you keep multiple targets uber charged at once. So essentially, there's this little like flashing flickering effect that happens before someone is actually becoming vulnerable again. Kind of as like a warning of like, hey, your Uber ran out, run away. But that during that time, you're still invulnerable. So if you keep rapidly healing multiple people while you're Ubered, you can keep them all flickering, meaning none of them can take damage. So essentially, you can Uber a bunch of players at once. Next is quick fix jumping. I think I may have mentioned this a bit in section 5 talking about the quick fix, but essentially when you're healing someone, you kind of like share their attributes. I'm not sure if it works with the Force of Nature, but you know, with Soldier who rocket jumps, you can rocket jump with them. With Demo who either charges or sticky jumps, or even grenade jumps, I think. Essentially, you can pretty much go with whoever. Even, I'm pretty sure thermal thrusting pyros you can ride with. So, just if you see someone doing a lot of movement like that and you want to go flying as medic, pick the quick fix and just heal them for a bit. Sniper. Okay, Hitman's Heatmaker focus unscoping. So essentially, when you have focus with the Hitman's Heatmaker, you can fire and then immediately unscope, which then lets you move faster, but also gives you like a bigger field of view so you can see more of what's happening. And then you can scope in really quick, shoot, and then immediately unscope again. And essentially, it's just a much more efficient way to play Sniper. CL_auto resume. Me personally, I can't explain this very well. I have demos for some of these by Rock and some of them by me. But essentially what it is when you have this set to 1, you will resume in after firing a shot, which some people don't like. I don't like it. However, if you C-tap, or you jump and land on a ramp, or you jump and bump your head against something, it will zoom you in faster. Essentially, you can fire bullets much, much faster than a regular sniper. Again, I can't put it into good words. Watch this video by TF2, and he explains it much better. Hitboxes I also don't know a lot about. I will be linking another video here, but essentially, certain hitboxes are kind of fucky. Like, the closer you are to a soldier, I believe the lower down you have to look, or the higher up you have to look, or something like that. It's really weird. Another thing to note is spy hitboxes. So, and this works for every class to keep in mind, but Spy, when he disguises as something, he still has regular Spy hitboxes. So if he disguises as a scout, and you look at that scout from the side and try to shoot his, like, the tip of his head or whatever, you're actually gonna miss, or maybe just do a body shot, because you're actually shooting, like, the Spy's arm, usually. You should be shooting where the Spy's head would be if he wasn't disguised. Alright, and now the one that I'm gonna know the most about, Spy. First off, trick stabs. I'm just gonna name them and like probably have a clip of each one just so you can kind of see how it works. Essentially, Matador, where you go side to side, you juke them into looking one way, then go the other way. Corner stab, where you make them think you go around a corner and then you appear back from the corner and get them. Stair stab, you jump over them. This also can be in just an air stab or aerial. You like, for example, this clip on a soldier. Let's see, I'm just trying to do this by memory. Circle strafe stabs, where you keep doing circles around them. Surf stabs, actually, where you can surf damage to, fly into someone, or actually you can surf melees too. It's pretty cool. If someone hits you with melee, you can like surf that melee damage up and over them and get a stab on top of them. Under stabs, side stabs, strafe stabs, or strafe and snaps. Just a bunch of different shit. I'd look into it if you're interested. I might actually make a video on it. Anyway, C-tap stabbing. C-tap stabbing is where essentially it's a kind of the same thing as soldier, and if you have a script to do C-tap rocket jumping for soldier, it'll actually work with C-tap stabbing for spy, where when you C-tap, you get closer to the ground so you can hit the ground, because you need to be crouching in order to hit the ground. You can hit the ground just by looking down. And essentially, once you hit the ground, or once you get close enough to the ground or whoever you're standing on, you can stab them and then immediately jump off of them. So you can stab and then jump. I guess it's kind of jump and then stab, but you get what I mean. Dead Ringer reload boosting. This actually works with the other watches too, but it's really not practical. With the Dead Ringer, if you're like reloading your gun, you can double click the cloak button to pull out the Dead Ringer, then immediately pull it away, and this actually makes you reload your gun faster for some reason. You can also block taking surf damage, like knockback surfing, if you're disguised for whatever reason. If you're disguised or in the process of disguising, you don't take knockback from damage. So if you don't want to get like knocked away from someone's back, or you want to go through some place without being juggled, disguise and you won't take any knockback. Another one that I actually learned of recently thanks to Stabby, check out Stabby by the way, removing virtual or visual effects on you by changing your disguise status. So like if I'm disguised as say a pyro, and I'm using the cloak and dagger, I'm just chilling somewhere, right? Or I'm disguised as anyone, really. And a pyro's flaming around and a flame particle just so happens to hit me. If I undisguise, which I use this bind to undisguise, if you're gonna play spy a lot, like if you're gonna main spy, make sure you have this bind handy, it will help you a lot. If I undisguise, I will still be taking fire damage and on fire, but I won't be visible, like they won't be able to see the afterburn on me. And this works with Mad Milk, gasoline, like being wet, pretty much anything that isn't Girardi for some reason. Girardi still is visible. Next up is backstab hitboxes. I'm going to talk about this very briefly. Essentially, cut the person in half, and that is their, essentially their back half where their character is facing. Not even their camera, because if they're looking straight up, that means you have to be underneath them to stab them, and that's not how that works. But wherever the character is facing, I guess laterally, like horizontally, not vertically, the back half of them is where you can stab. This also changes how you play sometimes on certain maps, because based on how the map is aligned in the hammer editor, you can like either run off of people or run into people. I'll try to find a video of it kind of explaining it as I talk over this, but yeah, it's something to keep in mind for certain maps. A lot of good spies will kind of like have a memory bank of like of where each map is aligned, at least a lot of the common maps. I don't yet, but I'm working on it. And I'm gonna stop right there because I don't want this to be a trick stab video, even though, as I said, I might actually make one of those at some point. But that's all the class texts that I can think of. If you have more, go ahead, add them into the comments, let people see them. I might pin them or something like that. Who knows? Anyway, time for the conclusion. Yeah, I ran out of the jingles. And that is it. I think I've told you everything you need, and a lot of shit you probably don't. It's important to note that I left some shit out, which I realize I did. Certain things like positioning and whatnot, general combat techniques. I went over a lot of it in the beginning, but a lot more of the proper, like, niche stuff I've left for you to figure out. Most of this was because either A, I didn't know how to explain it without making it sound confusing, which, if you couldn't tell by my language and crude explanations, I've been trying to avoid, or B, because it just wasn't something that's like a need to know, or it doesn't even fit in the could know sections of the video. My biggest regret making this video is that I don't know enough about all the classes combined. I know a shit ton about Spy, and I know a lot about the game, but I wish I could give more insight into the text of other classes, or the nuances of trading, or stuff like that. However, there are plenty of other videos out there, as I said earlier, and if there's any part of this video that you'd like a more in-depth look at, look it up. This video was made to expose people to new knowledge, primarily absolute beginners, as I'm noticing waves and waves of new people in TF2 nowadays, which is good. But also maybe some already experienced players scrolling through a YouTube feed. Regardless, like the video if you want. I don't make money off of this yet, so I don't really give a shit. If you comment, I'll probably get back to you, especially with how small my channel is, so ask me any questions you have, or correct me, especially, please, correct me. I did my research to fact check all of this, but if I missed something, I want to make it a priority. It's known in the description. Yeah, by the way, check the description for any and all fuck-ups I notice or are brought up to me. Also, sorry if my voice is inconsistent or sounds bad right now. I'm actually working off my allergies. The past few sections I've narrated with allergies, and that's been really shit. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I bit my tongue in my sleep, like a chunk off of it. It was gnarly. Sorry if my voice has been shit. But yeah, I think that's it. Fuck off.